Hello everybody, my name is Dragon. Welcome back my channel Health Fitness 1047. Here is the episode new. Follow me.
Get ready, because the boxing world is definitely buzzing. All eyes turning towards this massive rematch, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois.
That's right. And look, this isn't just, another fight. It's a huge deal, big stakes.
Right.
So to really get a grip on what's driving all the talk, we've actually pulled together a bunch of sources for you. We're looking at predictions, the backstory leading up to this second fight.
And even, apparently, a look into some pretty unique training methods.
Exactly. A fascinating peek into how one of these champions prepares.
Okay, so our mission here is to take all this stuff, unpack it, and, pull out the key insights for you. What are these sources really telling us about the stakes, the fighters' journeys?
Yeah, and maybe who actually has the edge when they get in that ring.
Let's find those nuggets, cut through the hype.
Right.
What do the sources really tell us?
Okay, let's dive in.
Right, so the stage is set, July 19th, 2025, Wembley Stadium, London. Big one.
And the stakes couldn't be higher, really. The sources are clear. This is for the undisputed heavyweight championship.
Undisputed, that's huge.
It really is. Only the second time ever, all four main belts, the WBA, WBO, WBC, and the IBF, are all up for grabs in one heavyweight fight.
Wow.
Usyk's got three of them, WBA, WBO, WBC. Dubois holds the IBF.
And that IBF belt, that's interesting, isn't it? Because Usyk actually gave that one up about a year ago.
Yeah, he vacated it. Dubois picked it up. Adds another layer.
And you just can't talk about this rematch without thinking back to the first fight, right? August 2023. Usyk won, 9th round stoppage.
But the moment everyone remembers, the one that's all over the promotion for this fight, that fifth round,
The body shoot
Dubois drops Usyk. He thinks it's clean right to the body, but the ref calls it low.
gives Usyk recovery time. Massive controversy.
And that's really front and center this time around. It's the narrative.
The sources also talk about just the sheer scale of this. Wembley, over 70,000 tickets gone already.
Yeah, huge crowd. And the money involved.
For pay.
Record-breaking purses for both guys are expected.
That historical angle. No British fighter has ever held all four belts at once.
Right. Lennox Lewis was undisputed. Everyone recognized him. But technically, he didn't hold the WO right at that point.
So massive history on the line for Dubois if he pulls it off.
Huge opportunity, yeah.
Okay, so predictions, perspectives. There's one voice coming through really strong in the sources, backing Dubois. John Fury.
Yeah, Tyson Fury's dad. He is, according to the articles, firmly behind DDD. Thinks he beats Usyk.
And his reasons. The sources lay them out pretty clearly.
Yeah, he basically thinks Usyk is going on too long. Age, basically. Usyk's 38, nearly 39.
He thinks it's just Dubois' time now.
Pretty much. Time for Dubois to grab those belts. He keeps mentioning Usyk coming up from cruiserweight.
Right, and now he's taking shots from these big heavyweights.
Exactly. Fury's view is, eventually he's going to walk into one.
And he calls Dubois a big banger, obviously talking about that KO power.
Yeah, he does. And he says Dubois is on a roll. Points to that fight with AJ, Anthony Joshua, last September.
The one Dubois one.
Yeah, Fury called it an excellent fight. Said Dubois hurt AJ. He was touch and go for a bit until AJ landed that shot. He seems really impressed by that performance.
Interesting. And he even brings up Usyk's fights against his son, Tyson.
He does. Says Usyk had his tank emptied twice by the Gypsy King in those fights. Suggests maybe Usyk's been worn down by those battles.
So John Fury's bottom line is, it's the right time for Dubois. He's putting his money where his mouth is.
Confident. Very confident.
But there is a little counterpoint in the sources, right? Usyk himself apparently said someone else hit him harder than Dubois did in that first fight.
Yeah, that's mentioned. Kind of throws a little water on the whole unstoppable power thing from Fury's perspective, maybe. Yeah. Suggests Usyk feels he can handle it.
Definitely adds a wrinkle. Okay, what about Dubois' own camp, Frank Warren, his promoter?
Right. The sources say Warren is totally unfazed that Dubois is the underdog again. He's not worried. And crucially, he says Dubois isn't worried either.
Makes him make a mockery of the odds again.
That's the quote, yeah. Warren really paints Dubois' career as this, massive roller coaster. He's still only 27, been pro 8 years.
Started with huge hype, didn't he? Future champ, all that.
Yeah, all by his punching power, sparring stories. But then came the setbacks.
The Joe Joyce fight, November 2020, that eye injury.
Fractured eye socket, yeah. Critics basically wrote him off then. Said he was a front runner, crumbled when things got tough.
And then the first Usyk fight, taking the knee, getting counted out, More criticism about his mental strength.
Yeah, some saw it as him breaking down under the pressure again. But the sources stress this big resurgence he's had since.
Right, fighting for his career, basically. Stopped Gerald Miller, stopped Philip Hrgovic. Those were seen as must-win fights.
Definitely make or break. And then the big one, the sources really highlight this. Yeah. Beating Anthony Joshua last September at Wembley.
As the IBF champ.
Yep, and Warren's take is he demolished AJ. 5 rounds, one-sided, looked unstoppable. That win cemented his comeback.
And Warren makes that point. Dubois wasn't the favorite in his last 4 fights. Usyk won, Miller, Hrgovic, AJ.
And he won them all. Warren says he's in a good place of mind now. Believes in himself, believes in his power.
And Dubois himself said beating Usyk would be the greatest victory in boxing.
Yeah, told Talk Sport that according to one source. So the narrative from their side is clear. Power, momentum, new mental toughness.
Okay, but that brings us to the big question, the one these sources really dig into. How does Usyk do it? The smaller guy beating these bigger heavyweights.
Right, and this is where the sources get really interesting. Looking at his preparation, it seems different.
Yeah, one source gets into his training routine, details from his Polish fitness coach, Jakub Czycki. A journalist visited the camp.
And it's not your standard boxing workout, apparently.
Not at all. They talk about a focus on rate, like explosive dynamic stuff, quick jumps, fast presses, powerful kettlebell swings.
The logic being, you don't have time for slow strength in a fight. It's all about instant reactions, maximum power, fast.
And the tools they use. Not your typical gym gear.
Kettlebells, yeah. But for balance, too. Gymnastic rings.
Yeah, for muscle control, coordination. And resistance bands, making moves harder without just piling on heavy weights. Keeps them mobile.
And they train all planes of motion. Slipping, rotating, explosive lunges with twists, side lunges.
Even unstable surfaces for things like squats and push-ups. The idea is to be strong and ready for anything in the ring, not just moving forwards and backwards.
Then there's plyometrics. That's the explosive stuff, right? Jumping, pushing off hard, medicine ball slams.
Fast punches, kicks, building that explosive power. But there's this detail the sources mention these micro-movements. Controlled trembling while holding deep squats.
That's intense.
Yeah, described as uncommon, but really effective for muscle control when you're tired, in awkward spots.
And maybe the weirdest one, badminton.
Haha, yeah. Apparently included to sharpen reaction speed, vision, coordination, responding instantly to something unpredictable, like a shuttlecock.
Makes sense, I guess. Paired with light and sound reaction drills, too. And one last specific exercise mentioned. These kettlebell leg exercises.
For hip flexors.
Exactly. Strengthening those muscles for raising the knee. Vital for footwork, mobility. You put a kettlebell on the leg, prop it up, lift slowly. It's supposed to be super effective.
Wow. So the picture you get from the sources about Usyk's training, it's like a science lab almost.
It really seems like it. A scientific system, not just grinding it out. Building a foundation, then adding these unique, specific things to counter size and power.
Okay, so let's pull this all together for you, the listener. What do these sources really show us? You've got the Dubois narrative power, momentum, the comeback story, backed by people like John Fury and Frank Warren.
Right, that belief in his KO ability and his recent run. And that stands in pretty stark contrast to what we learned about Usyk's prep.
This incredibly detailed, scientific, almost unconventional training designed specifically to beat bigger, stronger guys.
It's like 2 different lenses on the same fight, isn't it? Dubois, the kind of unstoppable force lately, meeting Usyk, the immovable object built through this meticulous preparation.
Momentum and power versus tailored strategy and years of experience at the top.
So, just to recap, we've touched on the historical stakes, the first fight's controversy fueling this one, the strong predictions for Dubois.
And then that deep dive into Usyk's really unique training methods aimed at negating those exact strengths Dubois brings.
Which leaves us with a pretty interesting thought, prompted by these sources, doesn't it?
Yeah, something for you to really chew on. When you think about John Fury's point, maybe Usyk's tank was emptied a bit by those Fury fights.
And Frank Warren's confidence in Dubois' mindset now, his power, how he's overcome those earlier setbacks.
How much does Usyk's kind of unique scientific preparation really count against that momentum, against that feeling that maybe it is the right time for Dubois, this big banger who seems to have finally hit his stride?
It's the classic question, isn't it? Preparation versus momentum. We'll find out on July 19th.